I sat at table 12, hidden behind a mountain of flowers that could have swallowed a small plane, feeling like an unwanted guest at my own daughter's wedding. The petals blocked my view, but I could hear the laughter, the clinking glasses, and the whispers of people who didn't even glance my way. At 72, I'd learned to smile through life's little insults, but this one stung deep. My gray dress, chosen to look modest and harmless, clung to me like a shield, and my grandmother's pearls felt heavier than usual. I wasn't just Sylvia Hartley, the widow nobody noticed. I was a woman with secrets worth millions, and I was about to face a storm I'd seen coming for years. My new son-in-law, Marcus Thornfield, thought he could outsmart me, but he had no idea what kind of trap he'd walked into. The morning had started with hope. I'd spent hours at Martha's salon, getting my silver hair pinned just right, not too fancy, just enough to look respectable for Emma's big day. "Mom, you look acceptable," Emma had said, her eyes already darting to some wedding planner crisis. Acceptable. The word hit like a dull knife. I watched her float around in my great-grandmother's lace gown, glowing like only a bride could, her smile making everyone forget their troubles for a moment. But as guests arrived, the room split into tiers of importance. Marcus's parents, Patricia and Edward, swept in like they owned the place, her diamonds sparkling brighter than the chandeliers. Patricia air-kissed the rich and ignored the rest, her eyes sliding past me like I was part of the decor. "Excuse me," I said to the usher, holding up my table card with a smile. "I think there's been a mistake." He barely looked at me. "Table 12, ma'am." Behind the decorative feature, fancy words for a floral wall that screamed, "Hide the old lady." I made my way to my seat, the hibiscus and baby's breath closing me in like a cage. From there, I could only see the party through a mirror across the room, my reflection staring back. A silver-haired widow, tucked away like yesterday's news. But I wasn't invisible. Not yet. The ceremony was perfect. Emma glided down the aisle, a vision in lace, and Marcus looked sharp in his tailored suit, every inch the charming groom. But during the cocktail hour, I noticed something. Marcus had different smiles, a bright one for the wealthy, a polite one for the useful, and nothing for those who didn't matter. Like me. "Mrs. Hartley," he said, suddenly at my side, his megawatt grin aimed like a weapon. "Isn't this magical?" He waved at the reception as if he'd invented it. "Magical," I said, my voice sweet as sugar syrup. "The view from here is educational." He missed the edge in my tone, or ignored it. "I'd love for us to get to know each other better," he said. "Maybe dinner this week? Just us." His eyes gleamed with something more than charm. "How refreshing," I replied, fanning myself with a napkin. "Most people meet their mother-in-law before the wedding, but I admire your unique timing." His smile flickered just for a second. "Thursday works for me," he said. "There's a private place downtown. Perfect for meaningful talks." Meaningful talks. The phrase hung heavy, like a storm cloud waiting to burst. "I can't wait," I said, playing the harmless widow he expected. As he walked away, I caught my reflection again. A woman who looked like she clipped coupons and fretted over bills. Exactly the image I'd crafted for 2 years. Marcus thought he was hunting easy prey. He was wrong. During the father-daughter dance, I slipped away to the ladies' room, touching up my lipstick and practicing my sweet old lady smile in the mirror. When I returned, Marcus was charming the couple next to me, the Hendersons, who soaked up his attention like it was fine wine. "Mrs. Hartley," he said, catching my eye. "Really looking forward to Thursday." "So am I, dear," I replied, my voice dripping with warmth I didn't feel. As Emma tossed her bouquet and the night wound down, I watched Marcus work the room like a pro, his every move calculated. He had plans, big ones. Too bad for him. I'd spent 72 years learning that the quiet ones are often the most dangerous, and this quiet widow was about to ruin his day. The days after the wedding dragged like a slow ache. Emma called every morning, her voice bubbly with newlywed joy, gushing about Marcus and how he was already planning their future. "He's so thoughtful, Mom," she said, "always thinking about our security." Security. The word felt slippery, like a warning I couldn't quite pin down. "That's sweet, dear," I replied, keeping my tone light. "A husband should definitely care about money, especially someone else's." She laughed, missing my point entirely. "You're funny, Mom," she said, and moved on to wedding thank you notes. I hung up, staring at my kitchen table, wondering what Marcus was really after. Wednesday felt endless, filled with small tasks, dusting Robert's old books, trimming the roses, sipping tea while my mind churned. Thursday loomed like a test I hadn't studied for, but I was ready to play my part. That evening I dressed carefully, a plain black dress that said widow without saying wealthy, my mother's pearl earrings and Robert's broken watch, still elegant enough to pass. The restaurant Marcus picked was one of those places where the menus didn't list prices, and the waiters looked at you like you'd ruined their dreams. He was already there, standing as I approached, his smile as polished as his suit. "Sylvia, you look radiant," he said, like he was selling me something. "Thank you, dear," I replied, settling into my chair. This place is something. It was the kind of spot that made you feel small if you didn't know the right wine to order. He ordered a bottle with a name I couldn't pronounce, swirling his glass like he'd been born doing it. "How are you managing, Sylvia? All alone in that big house?" His concern sounded rehearsed. "Oh, just fine," I said, smiling. 72 years teaches you a thing or two." He nodded, but his eyes were sharp, searching. "It must get overwhelming, though. All those decisions, finances, legal stuff, people who might take advantage." There it was, his real game, wrapped in fake worry. "Should I be worried about something specific, Marcus?" I asked, tilting my head like I was clueless. He leaned in, voice low. "Not worried, just prepared. Things can get tricky for someone in your situation." My situation, like being a widow, was a disease. "What situation is that?" I pressed, still smiling. He pulled out a manila folder with a flourish, placing it on the table like it was a gift. "Just some paperwork. Simple stuff to keep you safe, in case you need help making decisions." I opened the folder, my heart steady despite the words staring back at me. Power of attorney, financial control, medical decisions. All dressed up as care, but it was theft in fine print. "This is thorough," I said, my voice calm. "My lawyer specializes in this," he said, leaning back. "He's handled cases like yours." Cases, like I was a problem to be solved. "Has Emma seen this?" I asked. "She thinks it's a great idea," he said quickly. "We just want you protected, Sylvia, from people who might not have your best interests at heart." "Like him. How kind of you to think of my trusting nature," I said, closing the folder. His smile tightened. "We should finalize this tonight. It's better to act fast." Fast before I could think. "I'll need to show this to my own lawyer," I said, watching his face falter. "Your lawyer?" he asked like it was a surprise. "Oh, yes," I said. "I like things explained simply. For my simple mind." He pushed harder. "Sylvia, this works best if we handle it efficiently." I leaned forward, my voice soft but sharp. "And your notary? You brought one, didn't you? You seem so prepared." His mask slipped, just for a moment. "How did you know about a notary?" he asked, his voice tight. "Lucky guess," I said, smiling wider. "You planned so well." He stared at me, trying to figure out if I was naive or dangerous. "Take your time," he said finally, but his eyes said he was done playing nice. Good. I wasn't playing either. The weekend passed quietly, but I could feel Marcus's impatience through the phone. Emma called twice, asking about that helpful paperwork Marcus mentioned. "Still thinking about it, sweetheart," I said, dodging her questions. "He's just trying to help Mom," she insisted. "He knows so much about legal stuff." Legal stuff like stealing, I thought, but didn't say. Monday morning, Marcus called, his voice smooth but edged with urgency. "Sylvia, have you thought about our talk?" he asked. "Oh, I've thought about little else," I replied, keeping my tone light. "Great," he said. "Can we meet again? I have more to share. Maybe at your place this time. More private." My place. No witnesses. What kind of information? I asked. "Examples of how this has helped other families," he said. "Success stories." Success for him, disaster for them. "Wednesday at 7, I said. "Perfect," he replied, and I could hear the smile in his voice. I spent the next 2 days preparing, watching, planning. If Marcus wanted to play in my house, I'd make sure the rules favored me. By Wednesday, I was ready, dressed in another simple outfit, my face set in the perfect widow smile. Marcus was about to learn that some games have very high stakes. Marcus arrived at my house right on time, his briefcase in hand and that same polished smile plastered on his face. I welcomed him in, my gray dress and simple earrings playing the part of the unassuming widow. The living room felt smaller with him in it, his confidence filling the space like a storm cloud. He sat on my old couch, spreading papers across the coffee table with the ease of someone who'd done this before. "Sylvia, I'm so glad you agreed to meet here," he said, his voice warm but calculated. "This is much more comfortable for such an important discussion." I nodded, pouring tea from a pot I'd set out to keep things cozy. "Oh, I'm not overwhelmed," I said, smiling. "This is all quite educational." His eyes flickered, but he pushed on undeterred. He slid a stack of documents toward me. "These are case studies," he said. "Families just like yours who've benefited from arrangements like this. Protection, peace of mind." I flipped through the pages, seeing names and numbers that meant nothing but screamed lies. "How thoughtful," I said, setting the papers down. "But before we get to other people's stories, Marcus, I'm curious about yours. What qualifies you to manage someone's life?" His smile stiffened just for a second. "I've got experience in business," he said smoothly. "Investment management, mostly." I tilted my head. "For which company?" He waved a hand. "I work independently now. Before that, various roles in finance." "Vague. Too vague. How many elderly people have you protected?" I asked, my voice soft but pointed. "A few," he said, shifting in his seat. "Families who needed guidance." "Guidance they asked for, or guidance you offered?" I pressed, sipping my tea. The room went quiet, the only sound the ticking of my grandmother's clock. His eyes narrowed, like he was sizing me up. "Sylvia, I think there's a misunderstanding here," he said, his tone still smooth but tighter now. "No misunderstanding," I replied, my smile unwavering. "I'm just curious about your methods." His jaw clenched, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. "I'd never take advantage of anyone," he said, leaning forward. "Never target vulnerable people. Never manipulate them." I set my cup down, my voice dropping. "Never steal their independence under the guise of care." His face froze, the mask cracking. "You're making serious accusations," he said, his voice low. "I'm making observations," I countered, leaning back. "You made a mistake, Marcus." "What mistake?" he asked, his hands gripping the edge of the table. I smiled, channeling every bit of strength Robert had seen in me, assuming I was just another helpless widow. His eyes widened, and for the first time he looked unsure. "Sylvia, you're confused," he said, but his voice wavered. "I'm not confused," I said, my tone sharp enough to cut. "I know exactly what you're trying to do. The question is, do you know what I'm about to do?" He stared, his confidence crumbling. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm talking about the recording device in this room," I said, pointing to the small camera hidden in a bookshelf. "I'm talking about the private investigator who's been following you. I'm talking about the lawyer who's building a case against you." His face went pale, like someone had drained the life from him. "You can't prove anything," he stammered. "I can prove everything," I said, standing up. "Your gambling debts, your financial troubles, your history of targeting elderly women. All of it." He froze, his hands shaking. "How do you know about my debts?" he asked, his voice breaking. "I know everything," I said, my voice cold. "You're not the first charming man who's tried to scam me, but you're the first who's going to regret it." He stood, grabbing his papers, his movements jerky. "You don't understand," he said. "I'm desperate. You need to leave." I cut him off, pointing to the door. "Before I call the police." His eyes darted around, like he was looking for an escape. "Sylvia, we can work something out," he pleaded. "The only thing we're working out is whether you leave on your own or in handcuffs," I said, stepping closer. He backed away, clutching his briefcase like a shield. "This isn't over," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "Yes, it is," I replied, thinking of the secrets waiting in my basement. He stormed out, the door slamming behind him, and I poured myself a glass of Robert's favorite wine, savoring the panic in his eyes. The next morning, I stood at the top of my basement stairs, holding Robert's key, my heart pounding. For 2 years, I'd avoided this moment, too wrapped in grief to face what he'd left behind. Marcus had given me a reason to open that safe. The basement smelled of old paper and Robert's cologne, a scent that hit me like a memory. His desk was untouched, crossword puzzles, coffee-stained coasters, his old reading glasses. The safe was hidden behind a panel I'd never noticed, clever as Robert always was. I turned the key, and inside I found papers that made my hands shake. Bank statements for accounts I didn't know existed, investments stretching back decades, trusts I'd never heard of. At the bottom, a letter in Robert's handwriting. "My dearest Sylvia," it began. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, and someone's trying to take advantage of you. I'm sorry, I never told you about the money. $33 million, all yours, protected so you'd be safe from predators like whoever drove you to open this safe. 33 million. The number hit me like a wave, and I sat in Robert's chair, the letter trembling in my hands. "There's a card for Carol Peterson," he wrote. "She's handled everything since I got sick. She knows the threats you might face and will help you fight back. Don't let anyone steal what I built for you. Use every penny if you have to. Make them regret crossing you." I found Carol's card and called her right away. "Peterson Law Office," she answered. "This is Sylvia Hartley. My husband, Robert, said you could help me." Her voice warmed. "Mrs. Hartley, I've been waiting for your call. Can you come in today?" "Right now," I said, grabbing the papers and heading out the door. Carol's office was nothing like the stuffy law firms I'd imagined. Bright, modern, with family photos mixed among her degrees. She was sharp, maybe 50, with a handshake that meant business. "Sylvia, sit," she said, spreading my documents across her desk like a battle map. Robert told me this day might come. "What day?" I asked, my voice steady despite the weight of everything. "The day someone tried to take what's yours," she replied. "He knew someone would come after you, probably through family, thinking you had just a little money. But it's not little, is it?" I shook my head, still stunned. 33 million, I said quietly. "All safe in a trust you control," Carol said, her eyes gleaming. "No one can touch it, not even with those papers Marcus tried to push." "So he gets nothing?" I asked, leaning forward. "Not a dime," she said, her smile sharp as a blade. "But we can do more than protect you. We can make sure he never tries this again." "How?" I asked, my heart racing. "Criminal charges for fraud, civil suits for damages, and we dig into every shady deal he's ever made," she said. "We'll bury him." I thought of Emma, of Marcus's smooth lies, of the way he'd looked at me like I was an easy mark. "When do we start?" I asked. "We already have," Carol said. "The moment you walked in, Marcus became the one in trouble." I left her office feeling like I'd just been handed a weapon, Robert's letter burning in my pocket. Marcus thought he was the hunter. He was about to learn what it felt like to be hunted. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Carol connected me with a private investigator who'd already been tracking Marcus's moves, his gambling debts, his late-night meetings, his pattern of cozying up to older women with money. He's done this before, the investigator told me over coffee, sliding a folder across the table. At least 3 other widows, all conned out of their savings. My stomach twisted. How much? I asked. Over $1 million total, he said. He's good. Picks women who seem alone, trusting. But you? You're different. I smiled, thinking of Robert's safe. He picked the wrong widow, I said. The investigator grinned. That he did. We've got enough to nail him, but we need to catch him in the act. That's when Carol suggested a trap. We make him think you're signing those papers, she said, her voice calm but excited. We record everything, his words, his moves, his notary. Then we call the police. I nodded, the plan clicking into place. When? I asked. Monday, she said. Gives us time to set up cameras and get the cops ready. I spent Saturday practicing my role, perfecting my shaky widow voice, rehearsing lines about needing Marcus's protection. Sunday, Emma showed up at my door, her face tight with worry. Mom, Marcus is acting strange, she said, sitting on my couch. He keeps asking about Dad's money, if you have hidden accounts or investments. What did you tell him? I asked, keeping my voice even. That I don't know anything about your finances, she said, her eyes searching mine. But why is he so interested? I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. Because he needs money, Emma. More than you know. Her face paled. What do you mean? She asked. He's trying to take what's mine, I said. And I'm going to stop him. She stared at me, confusion mixing with fear. You think he's stealing from you? She asked. I know he is, I said. The question is, are you ready to see proof? She was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. Show me, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Monday morning, I called Marcus, my voice trembling just enough to sound convincing. Marcus, it's Sylvia, I said. I've been thinking about our talk. You're right. I need protection. His voice lit up, barely hiding his excitement. That's wonderful, Sylvia. When can we meet? This afternoon, I said, adding a touch of hesitation. As soon as possible. I feel so vulnerable. Perfect, he said, his tone smooth as ever. I'll bring the notary. We'll get everything signed. Say, 3 o'clock at your place. 3 sounds good, I replied, my heart pounding with anticipation. After I hung up, Carol, who'd been listening through the recording setup, gave me a nod. He's hooked, she said. Now we let him hang himself. At exactly 3, Marcus arrived, his notary trailing behind him like a shadow. The hidden cameras were rolling, catching every word, every move. He spread the papers on my coffee table, his smile brighter than ever. Sylvia, I'm so relieved you're doing this, he said, his voice dripping with fake concern. I realized you were right about the dangers, I said, my hands folded in my lap. An old woman like me needs help. He nodded, sliding the papers closer. These give Emma and me the power to protect you. Your money, your health, your home. My home. I asked, raising an eyebrow. Everything, he said, his eyes gleaming. We'll handle it all. I picked up the pen, letting my hand shake. This is a lot, I said, my voice soft. It's for the best, he said, leaning in. Trust me. Trust him. The man who wanted to lock me away and take everything. What happens to my money after I sign? I asked, pausing. His smile tightened. It'll be managed properly, he said. No more stress for you. By you? I asked, tilting my head. By people who know what they're doing, he said, dodging. I signed the first page, then stopped. Marcus, there's something you should know, I said, setting the pen down. His eyes narrowed. What's that? He asked. I think there's more money than you know about, I said, watching his face light up like a kid on Christmas. More money? He asked, leaning forward. Robert might have left some hidden accounts, I said, my voice hesitant. Significant amounts. His hands shook, his greed spilling out. How significant? He asked, his voice tight with excitement. I smiled, slow and deliberate. "That's where things get interesting," I said. Before he could respond, the police stepped out from the next room, their badges gleaming. "Marcus Thornfield, you're under arrest," one of them said, reading his rights as his face went white. "You can't do this," he shouted, his notary frozen in shock. "I can," I said, standing tall. And I did. The police led him away, his screams about entrapment echoing down the hall. That evening, the news hit. Local businessmen arrested in elder fraud sting. Emma called, her voice shaking. "Mom, what did you do?" she asked. "I protected myself," I said, "from your husband's attempt to steal everything." "But this will ruin him," she cried. "Good," I said, my voice hard. "That's the point." An hour later, she showed up at my door, tears streaming down her face. I played the recording of Marcus's confession, every greedy word, every lie. "He was going to put me in a home, Emma," I said, "and tell everyone I was too old to think for myself." She stared at the screen, her heart breaking as the truth sank in. "He loves me," she whispered. "He loves what he thought you'd get him," I said, my voice soft but firm. "There's a difference." Emma sat across from me, her eyes red and her hands twisting a tissue into knots. The recording of Marcus's confession played on a loop in my head, his greedy words cutting deeper than I'd expected. "How could I not see it?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "He was so perfect." I reached for her hand, my own steady despite the storm inside. "He was good at lying, sweetheart," I said softly. "That's not your fault." She pulled away, staring at the floor. "But I brought him into our lives. I married him." Her voice cracked, and I felt a pang in my chest. My daughter, so bright and trusting, had been played just as much as I had. "You loved him," I said. "That's not a mistake. It's human." She looked up, tears spilling over. "What do I do now, Mom?" she asked. "You decide what's next," I said. "But you'll do it knowing the truth." The news played on the TV in the background. Marcus's face splashed across the screen, his polished smile replaced by a scowl as police led him away. "Local businessman charged with attempted elder fraud," the reporter said, and I muted it, not wanting to hear his name again. Emma stood, pacing my living room, her hands shaking. "He talked about our future," she said. "Houses, vacations, kids. Was it all a lie?" I thought of the papers in my basement, the $33 million Marcus had no idea about. "Not all of it," I said carefully, "but he saw you as a way to get to me, to the money he thought I didn't have." Her eyes widened. "Money? What money?" I hesitated, then decided it was time. "Your father left more than you know," I said. "Enough to change everything." Her face paled. "How much, Mom?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Enough to make men like Marcus desperate." She froze, staring at me like I'd grown a second head. "How much, Mom?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Enough to change everything," I said, keeping it vague. "But that's for another day. Right now, we focus on keeping you safe." She nodded, but I could see the questions piling up behind her eyes. I didn't tell her about the trust, not yet. She was already carrying enough. That night, I lay awake, thinking about Robert's letter, about how he'd known someone like Marcus would come. He'd armed me with money and a plan, but it was up to me to use them. And I would, starting with making sure Marcus never hurt anyone again. The next morning, Carol called, her voice buzzing with excitement. "Sylvia, we've got a meeting with a prosecutor today," she said. "Sarah Chen. She specializes in elder fraud and thinks Marcus is part of something bigger." "Bigger how?" I asked, pouring coffee. "A network," she said. "People who target older folks, especially widows. She wants to talk to you." I agreed to meet at the district attorney's office that afternoon. Sarah Chun was younger than I'd expected, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "Mrs. Hartley, tell me about Marcus," she said, her pen poised over a notepad. I walked her through every detail, His fake concern, the dinner, the papers, the way he pushed for control. Classic playbook, she said, scribbling. He's done this before. Family ties, emotional manipulation, urgent timelines. He's a pro. A pro. I asked, my stomach tightening. How many others? She leaned back, her face grim. At least 5 we know of. Probably more. He picks widows who seem alone, vulnerable. But you flipped the script. I smiled, thinking of the cameras in my living room. He didn't expect a fight, I said. No, he didn't, Sarah said, her eyes glinting. And we're going to use that. We want to set a bigger trap, catch his whole network. I leaned forward. What kind of trap? I asked. You call him, she said. Say you've changed your mind, want to sign the papers. We record it all, his words, his moves, his contacts. Then we take them all down. I nodded, the plan sparking something fierce in me. Let's do it, I said. The rest of the week was a whirlwind. Carol and Sarah set up more cameras, coordinated with the police, and briefed me on what to say. I practiced my lines, keeping my voice frail and uncertain, the perfect bait for a man like Marcus. By Sunday, Emma was back, her face a mix of anger and heartbreak. I found emails, she said, holding out her phone. Marcus talking to some guy named Richard about securing assets. What does that mean? I took the phone, scanning the messages. They were coded, but clear enough. Marcus and this Richard were planning to move money, my money once I signed. It means he's not working alone, I said, handing it back. But we're ready for him. Monday morning, I called Marcus again, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. Marcus, it's Sylvia, I said, letting a quiver creep in. I've been thinking. I want to move forward with the papers. His voice was all charm, but I could hear the hunger underneath. Sylvia, that's the right choice, he said. I can be there today, say for works, I said, adding a touch of doubt. It's just so fast. It's for your safety, he said, his tone soothing. We'll take care of everything. I hung up, and Carol, monitoring the call, gave me a thumbs up. He's all in, she said. Now we wait. At 4, Marcus showed up, his notary in tow, his smile as bright as ever. The cameras hummed quietly, catching every second. Sylvia, you're doing the right thing, he said, spreading the papers out again. I nodded, picking up the pen, my hand trembling for effect. I just want to be safe, I said, signing the first page. You will be, he said, his eyes gleaming. This covers everything. Your money, your house, your decisions. I paused, looking up. And if I change my mind later? I asked. His smile faltered. That depends on your mental state, he said carefully. These are permanent for your protection. Permanent, like a prison. I signed the second page, then stopped. Marcus, there's something I haven't told you, I said, setting the pen down. His eyes lit up, greedy. What's that? He asked. There's more money than you think, I said, watching his face transform. A lot more. How much? He asked, leaning in, his voice tight. I smiled, slow and deliberate. Enough to make this very interesting, I said. Before he could respond, the police burst in, badges out, voices sharp. Marcus Thornfield, you're under arrest for attempted fraud, one said, cuffing him as he sputtered. This is a setup, he shouted, his notary backing away in panic. It's justice, I said, standing tall. You picked the wrong widow. As they dragged him out, Emma stepped into the room, her face pale but resolute. I saw everything, she said. I'm done with him. I nodded, pulling her close, knowing the hardest part was still ahead. The days after Marcus's arrest felt like the calm after a storm, but the air was still heavy with tension. Emma moved into my guest room, her suitcases piled in the corner, her eyes hollow from crying. I feel so stupid, she said over breakfast, pushing her toast around the plate. How did I not see who he was? I set my coffee down, my heart aching for her. He fooled a lot of people, sweetheart, I said. Not just you. She shook her head, her voice bitter. But I married him. I let him into our family. I reached across the table, squeezing her hand. You trusted someone you loved, I said. That's not stupid. It's brave. She looked up, her eyes searching mine. What happens now? She asked. We rebuild, I said, and we make sure he pays for what he did. That afternoon, Marcus's father, Edward, showed up at my door, his face red with anger. Sylvia, you've ruined my son's life, he said, stepping into my living room without an invitation. I stayed calm, closing the door behind him. Your son tried to rob me, I said, my voice steady. I protected myself. He paced, his hands clenched. It was a misunderstanding, he said. Marcus was just trying to help. I laughed, sharp and cold. Help? By locking me in a home and stealing my money. He stopped, glaring at me. You're blowing this out of proportion, he said. You've destroyed our family's reputation. I stepped closer, my eyes locked on his. Your son destroyed your reputation, I said, and I'm not done with him yet. Edward left, muttering threats about lawyers, but I knew he had no ground to stand on. Carol called later, her voice sharp with purpose. Sylvia, the FBI is getting involved, she said. They think Marcus is tied to a bigger fraud ring. Dozens of victims, millions stolen. My stomach twisted. How many? I asked. At least 37 so far, she said, but they're still digging. I thought of those other widows, their lives torn apart by men like Marcus. What can we do? I asked. Keep pushing, she said. The FBI wants to talk to you. They think your case could bring the whole network down. I agreed to meet them, my mind racing with the weight of it all. Marcus wasn't just a lone crook. He was part of something much bigger. The FBI office was cold and gray, nothing like Carol's warm office. Agent Sarah Torres greeted me, her handshake firm, her eyes serious. Mrs. Hartley, your case is a game changer, she said, spreading files across a table. Photos, bank records, names of victims, too many names. Marcus was working with a group that targets elderly women, she said. Your sting gave us the evidence we needed to go after them. I looked at the files, my heart heavy. How much did they steal? I asked. Over 12 million, she said. Some victims lost everything. Homes, savings, independence. I thought of Robert's letter, his $33 million, his warning about predators. What's the plan? I asked. We're building a case, she said, but we need your help to fund a bigger operation. Legal support, victim recovery, more stings. Fund it, I asked, raising an eyebrow. How much? She didn't hesitate. $2 million to start, $5 million a year to keep it running. $5 million, a dent in Robert's trust, but nothing I couldn't handle. And what do I get for that? I asked. She smiled, sharp and determined. You get to destroy every predator like Marcus. You get to give victims their lives back. I nodded, the decision already made. Where do I sign? I asked. The paperwork took hours, but by the end, I'd committed to funding a program that would hunt fraudsters across the country. As I drove home, I felt Robert's presence, his trust like a shield around me. Marcus had started a war, and I was ready to finish it. Back home, Emma was waiting, her eyes clearer than before. I filed for divorce, she said, her voice steady but soft. I can't stay with someone who did this. I hugged her, proud and heartbroken. You're stronger than you know, I said. She pulled back, looking at me. Mom, what's this money you keep mentioning? How much did Dad leave? I took a deep breath, knowing the truth couldn't wait any longer. 33 million, I said. Her jaw dropped. Million, she whispered. Why didn't you tell me? Because your father wanted us safe, I said, and men like Marcus would have come running if they knew. She nodded, processing it, her eyes filling with tears. What do we do with it? She asked. We use it, I said, to protect others, to make sure no one else loses what we almost did. The next day, Carol called with an update. Marcus is talking, she said. giving up names, bank accounts, everything. He's trying to cut a deal. I gripped the phone, anger flaring. What kind of deal? I asked. Reduced sentence, she said. Maybe 8 years instead of 18. 8 years. He'd be out by 43. Still young enough to try again. He doesn't deserve it, I said. No, Carol agreed. But his information could take down dozens of others like him. I thought about the victims, the ones who'd lost everything. Take the deal, I said, but make sure he serves real time. He will, she said, her voice firm. And Sylvia, the FBI wants you to help create a victim advocacy program. Training cops, helping victims, funding prosecutions. They want your story to be the model. I smiled, thinking of Robert's letter, his trust in me. Set it up, I said. That evening, Emma and I sat on my porch, watching the sunset. Mom, you're scaring me, she said, her voice soft. You're not the quiet widow I thought you were. I laughed, sipping my tea. Good, said. It's time people knew I'm not helpless. She looked at me, a mix of awe and worry in her eyes. What's next? She asked. We fight, I said, for everyone who can't. As the stars came out, I thought of Marcus in his cell, his plans and ruins, and the program we were building with Robert's money. He'd thought he could steal my life. Instead, he'd given me a purpose, one that would outlast us all. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of meetings, paperwork, and planning. Carol and Sarah Torres pulled me into their world of legal battles and victim advocacy, and I found myself at the center of something bigger than I'd ever imagined. We set up the Hartley Foundation, funded by Robert's Trust, to train police, support victims, and hunt fraudsters like Marcus. My dining room table became a war room, covered with files, laptops, and coffee cups. Emma helped, her hand steady as she sorted through victim statements, her face hardening with every story of loss. These women trusted people like I trusted Marcus, she said one night, her voice thick with anger. How do they get away with it? I looked at her, my heart heavy but proud. They don't, not anymore, I said. We're stopping them. The first big win came when Sarah called with news. We got Richard, she said, her voice buzzing with excitement. Marcus's partner, the one from the emails. Your sting gave us the leverage to flip him. I gripped the phone, my pulse racing. What did he give up? I asked. Everything, she said. Names, bank accounts, fake companies. We're raiding 3 offices tomorrow. I imagined the look on Marcus's face when he heard his whole network was crumbling. Can I be there? I asked. Sarah hesitated, then laughed. You're not just a funder, Sylvia. You're one of us now. Meet us at 6. I hung up, feeling a fire I hadn't felt since Robert was alive. This was my fight now. The raid was chaos, flashing lights, shouting agents, boxes of documents hauled out of a sleek downtown office. I stood outside with Sarah, watching as men in suits were let out in cuffs, their faces pale with shock. That's Richard, Sarah whispered, pointing to a tall man with a nervous twitch. He looked nothing like the mastermind I'd imagined. Just a scared guy who'd thought he was untouchable. How many more? I asked. Dozens, she said. This is just the start. Back at home, Emma was waiting, her eyes wide as I told her about the raid. You were there, she asked, half awed, half worried. I had to see it, I said, for all the women they hurt. She nodded, her jaw tight. I want to help more, she said. Not just with papers. I want to meet the victims. The next day, we drove to a community center where the foundation was hosting its first victim support meeting. The room was filled with women, some my age, some older, their faces etched with loss. One, a woman named Helen, told her story, her savings gone, her home sold to pay debts, all because of a man like Marcus. He said, he'd take care of me, she said, her voice shaking. I believed him. Emma squeezed my hand, her eyes wet. I know how you feel, she said softly. I trusted the wrong man, too. The room went quiet, and I saw the strength in my daughter, raw and new. We're here to help, I said, standing up. No one will hurt you like that again. The women nodded, some crying, some clapping, and I felt Robert's trust burning in my chest, a promise kept. That night, Carol came over with more news. Marcus's trial starts next week, she said, sipping tea at my kitchen table. He's pleading guilty to avoid a longer sentence. I frowned, anger flaring. How long? I asked. 10 years minimum, she said, plus restitution for his victims. 10 years wasn't enough, but it was a start. What about the others? I asked. Richard's talking more every day, she said. We're building cases against 23 people so far. I leaned back, processing it. And the foundation? I asked. It's growing, she said. Your money's funding training programs in 5 states. We're teaching cops how to spot scams like Marcus's before they start. I smiled, thinking of Robert's letter. He'd known I could do this. Emma joined us, her face tired but determined. I want to speak at the trial, she said. Tell the judge what Marcus did to us. I looked at her, proud but worried. Are you sure? I asked. It'll be hard. She nodded, her eyes fierce. I need to do this, she said. For me, for you, for those women. Carol nodded, impressed. It'll carry weight, she said. A victim's testimony can sway a judge. I hugged Emma, feeling her strength, knowing she was finding her own way to fight. The trial loomed like a storm, but we were ready. Marcus had thought he could break us. Instead, he'd made us warriors. The morning of the trial, I dressed in my gray dress, the one I'd worn to the wedding, a reminder of where this all started. Emma wore black, her face set like stone. The courtroom was packed, reporters, victims, curious strangers. Marcus sat at the defense table, his suit wrinkled, his charm gone. He wouldn't look at us, but I stared right at him, letting him feel my gaze. The judge called Emma to speak, and she stood tall, her voice clear. He lied to me, she said. He used my love to get to my mother's money. He broke our family, but he didn't break us. The room was silent, every word landing like a hammer. I wiped a tear, proud beyond words. When it was my turn, I walked to the stand, my hands steady. Marcus Thornfield thought I was an easy target, I said. An old widow with no fight left. He was wrong. I fought for my daughter, for myself, for every woman he hurt. And I'll keep fighting. The judge nodded, her face grim but respectful. Marcus's lawyer tried to argue, but the evidence was ironclad. Recordings, emails, victim statements. The judge sentenced him to 12 years, 2 more than the plea deal, citing the devastating impact on our family. As they led him away, Marcus finally looked at me, his eyes full of hate. I smiled, small and sharp, and walked out with Emma, our heads high. That night, we sat on my porch, the air cool and quiet. I'm proud of you, I said, squeezing Emma's hand. You faced him. She smiled, tired but real. I learned from you, she said. You're not just mom anymore. You're a hero. I laughed, shaking my head. No hero, I said. Just a woman who's done being invisible. We watched the stars, the weight of the trial lifting, replaced by a new purpose. Robert's money wasn't just a shield. It was a sword, cutting through lies, protecting the vulnerable. Marcus had lost, but we'd won something bigger, a chance to make things right, not just for us, but for everyone. The months after the trial felt like waking up from a long, bad dream. Emma and I were closer than ever, spending evenings cooking together, laughing over old stories about Robert, trying to rebuild what Marcus had broken. But the weight of what we'd been through lingered, like a bruise that hadn't quite healed. One morning, as we sat with coffee, Emma looked at me, her eyes softer but still sharp with questions. Mom, how did you know what to do? She asked. How did you stay so calm? I stirred my coffee, thinking of Robert's letter, his trust, his faith in me. Your dad taught me to watch people, I said. He always said, Sylvia, trust your gut, but check their hands. I checked Marcus's hands, and they were dirty. She smiled, a small, sad thing. I wish I'd checked, she said. You will next time, I said, squeezing her hand. You're learning. The Hartley Foundation was growing fast, and so was my role in it. Carol and Sarah kept me busy with meetings, planning sessions, and trips to community centers across the state. We were training police in 10 cities now, teaching them how to spot scams before they could hurt anyone. At one session, a young officer raised his hand. Mrs. Hartley, how'd you know Marcus was a fraud? He asked. I smiled, leaning on the podium. He underestimated me, I said. Thought I was just an old lady with no fight left. Always assume people are smarter than they look. The room laughed, but I saw heads nodding, officers scribbling notes. I wasn't just Sylvia anymore. I was a voice people listened to, and it felt good. One afternoon, Helen, the widow from the victim support meeting, called me. Sylvia, I got my house back, she said, her voice trembling with joy. Your foundation paid for the lawyer. I'm not homeless anymore. I sat down, my throat tight. Helen, that's wonderful, I said. I'm so happy for you. No, Sylvia, she said. You don't get it. You gave me my life back. I hung up, tears in my eyes, and pulled out Robert's letter from my desk drawer. I read it again, his words like a hug across time. Make them regret crossing you, he'd written. I was doing more than that. I was giving people hope. That night, I told Emma about Helen, and she cried too. Dad would be proud, she said. He is, I said, smiling. I feel him every day. But not everything was smooth. Marcus's parents, Edward and Patricia, kept stirring trouble, spreading lies to anyone who'd listen. Sylvia entrapped our son, Patricia told a local reporter, her voice dripping with fake tears. She's a bitter old woman who ruined his life. The article stung, but Carol was ready. We're suing them for defamation, she said, slamming the newspaper on her desk. They're trying to rewrite the story, but we've got the truth, recordings, emails, everything. I nodded, my jaw tight. Do it, I said. Let them feel the consequences. The lawsuit hit the news, and suddenly the Thornfields were the ones dodging questions, their reputation crumbling faster than Marcus's had. Emma was finding her own strength, too. She started volunteering at the foundation, leading support groups for victims, sharing her story to help others heal. One evening, she came home with a light in her eyes I hadn't seen in months. I met a woman today, she said. She lost everything to a man like Marcus. I told her how he fought back, and she hugged me, Mom. Said I gave her hope. I pulled her close, my heart full. You're giving them what I gave you, I said. A reason to keep going. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I want to do more, she said. Maybe start a program for younger women. Teach them how to spot lies. I smiled, proud beyond words. Let's make it happen, I said. The foundation's first big conference was set for Saturday, and I was nervous, my hands shaky as I practiced my speech. The room would be packed, victims, police, lawyers, even a few reporters. You'll be great, Emma said, adjusting my scarf before we left. You're Sylvia Hartley. You took down a fraud ring. I laughed, but my stomach churned. When I stepped onto the stage, the crowd went quiet, hundreds of eyes on me. I was supposed to be a victim, I started, my voice steady despite my nerves. A widow with no fight left. But I had a secret, a husband who believed in me, and $33 million to fight with. The crowd gasped, then clapped, and I felt the weight of their trust. This foundation is for you, I said. For every person who's been lied to, cheated, used. We're fighting back, and we're winning. The applause was deafening, and Emma hugged me as I stepped off the stage, her eyes shining. You were amazing, she said. A reporter approached, asking for a quote. What's the Hartley Foundation's goal? He asked. I looked at Emma, then back at him. To make sure no one feels invisible, I said. To give people their power back. That night, we celebrated with Carol and Sarah over dinner, toasting to the foundation's success. But as I raised my glass, I thought of the women still out there, still vulnerable, still waiting for help. The fight wasn't over. Back home, Emmy and I sat on the porch, the air warm with summer's last breath. "I'm thinking of moving out," she said, her voice quiet. "Starting fresh." My heart twinged, but I nodded. "You're ready," I said, "but you'll always have a home here." She smiled, leaning her head on my shoulder. "I know, Mom, and I know you're not done fighting." I looked at the stars, thinking of Robert, of Helen, of every woman we'd help next. "Not by a long shot," I said. Marcus had tried to take my life, but he'd given me something instead. A purpose, a voice, a legacy. And I was just getting started. The Hartley Foundation's momentum carried us into fall, and with it came a new rhythm to our lives. Emma moved into a small apartment downtown, her first step toward rebuilding on her own terms. I helped her unpack, hanging curtains while she arranged books on a shelf, her laughter filling the space when we found an old photo of her and Robert at a county fair. "I'm going to be okay, Mom," she said, catching my worried glance. "I know," I said, pulling her into a hug. "You're tougher than you think." But as I drove home, my heart felt heavy, like I was letting go of something I wasn't ready to lose. The house felt too quiet without her, but I filled the silence with work, calls with Carol, meetings with Sarah, and late nights reviewing victim files. The foundation was my anchor now, keeping me steady. One crisp October morning, Carol called with big news. "Sylvia, we've been invited to speak at a national conference on elder fraud," she said, her voice bright. "Washington, D.C. next month. They want you to keynote." My stomach flipped. Me? Speak in front of thousands? I asked, gripping my coffee mug. "You're the face of this fight," she said. "Your story's inspiring people. Cops, victims, lawmakers. They need to hear it from you." I hesitated, thinking of the stage, the eyes, the weight of it all. What if I mess it up? I asked. Carol laughed. "You took down a fraud ring, Sylvia. You can handle a speech." I smiled, feeling Robert's strength in me. "Book the flight," I said. "I'm in." Preparing for the speech was like training for a fight. Emma helped me practice, sitting cross-legged on my couch, nodding as I stumbled through early drafts. "It's too stiff," she said one night, tossing me a pen. "Talk like you're telling me the story, not a crowd." I tried again, letting the words flow. How Marcus's charm hid his greed, how Robert's trust gave me power, how every victim deserved a chance to fight back. Emma's eyes lit up. "That's it, Mom," she said. "That's the real you." By the time we flew to D.C., I felt ready, my gray dress swapped for a sharp navy suit, my nerves tempered by purpose. The conference hall was massive, filled with faces, detectives, prosecutors, survivors. I stepped to the podium, my heart pounding, but my voice clear. "I was supposed to be a victim," I began, but I decided to be a fighter. The crowd leaned in as I told my story. Marcus's lies, the sting, the foundation. I talked about Helen, about the women we'd helped, about the millions Robert left to protect others. "This isn't just about money," I said. "It's about dignity. It's about making sure no one feels invisible." The applause shook the room, and I saw tears in the eyes of strangers, hands clapping with a shared fire. Afterward, people crowded around, shaking my hand, sharing their own stories. A detective from Chicago told me our training saved a widow from losing her home. A woman my age hugged me, whispering, "You made me feel seen." I flew home with Emma, my heart full, knowing this was what Robert had wanted. But trouble wasn't far behind. A week later, Sarah called, her voice tense. "Sylvia, we've got a problem," she said. "One of Marcus's old partners, a guy named Victor, is making noise. Says he's got dirt on you." I frowned, my pulse quickening. "Dirt? What kind?" I asked. "He's claiming you entrapped Marcus, that the whole sting was illegal," she said. "He's threatening to go to the press." I laughed, sharp and cold. "Let him try," I said. "We've got recordings, witnesses, everything." "Still," Sarah said, "he's dangerous. He's got money and connections. We need to shut him down fast." I nodded, thinking of Robert's letter. Set a meeting, I said. I want to face him. The meeting was at a neutral spot, a quiet diner outside town. Victor was older than Marcus, his suit expensive but his eyes hard, like a man who'd seen too many fights. Mrs. Hartley, he said, his voice smooth but cold. You've caused a lot of trouble. I sipped my coffee, meeting his gaze. Trouble finds people who steal from widows, I said. He leaned forward, his smile thin. I've got evidence you set Marcus up. I can make your life messy. I didn't flinch. And I've got evidence you've been running scams for 20 years, I said, sliding a folder across the table. His face paled as he opened it. Bank records, emails, names of victims. Where did you get this? He asked, his voice tight. You're not the only one who knows how to dig, I said, thinking of Sarah's team. Walk away, Victor, or you're next. He left without another word, but I knew he wasn't done. Sarah called the next day, her voice grim. Victor's gone quiet, but he's planning something, she said. We're watching him. I nodded, my jaw tight. Good, said, because I'm not backing down. That night, Emma came over, her face worried. Mom, are you sure this is safe? She asked. These people are dangerous. I looked at her, my heart steady. So am I said. Your dad gave me the tools to fight, and I'm using them. She hugged me, her grip tight. Just be careful, she said. I smiled, thinking of the foundation, the victims, the battles ahead. Careful's not enough, I said. We're going to win. Back at the foundation, we doubled our efforts, funding more stings, training more cops, helping more victims. Helen joined our team, her strength a beacon for others. One evening, as we sorted files, she looked at me. Sylvia, you've changed everything, she said. Not just for me, but for all of us. I shook my head, smiling. We're doing it together, I said. As I drove home under a sky full of stars, I thought of Robert, his trust, his love. Marcus had tried to break me, but he'd only made me stronger. The fight was far from over, but I was ready for Victor, for the next fraudster, for anyone who thought they could prey on the vulnerable. I wasn't just Sylvia Hartley anymore. I was a force, and I was just getting started. Winter settled over the town, blanketing my quiet street in snow, but inside my home, warmth filled every corner. Emma came over most weekends, her apartment now a cozy reflection of her strength. Photos of us, Robert's old books, a new life taking root. One Sunday, as we baked cookies, she looked at me, flower on her cheek, and laughed. You're different now, Mom, she said. Like you've got fire in you. I smiled, stirring batter, thinking of the battles behind us. I was always like this, I said. Just took the right fight to bring it out. She hugged me, her arms tight, and I felt Robert's presence, like he was watching, proud. The Hartley Foundation had grown beyond my wildest dreams. We'd helped over 100 women reclaim their lives. Homes saved, savings restored, dignity returned. Helen ran our victim support program now, her voice steady as she guided others through their pain. At our last meeting, she handed me a stack of letters from women we'd helped. Read these when you're alone, she said, her eyes shining. That night, I sat by the fire, reading stories of gratitude, mothers, grandmothers, sisters, all saying we'd given them hope. One wrote, "You made me feel like I matter again." I cried, clutching Robert's letter, his words echoing. Make them regret crossing you. I'd done more. I'd given people their lives back. Victor, Marcus's old partner, tried one last move, leaking lies to a tabloid about my shady tactics. But Sarah was ready, releasing our evidence, recordings, emails, victim testimonies. The story flipped, and Victor's name became mud, his connections scattering. Carol called with the final nail. He's been indicted, she said. Fraud, money laundering, the works. He's looking at 20 years. I smiled, sipping tea, feeling the weight of justice. Good, said. Let him sit with that. The news spread, and the foundation's work gained more support, donations, volunteers, even a senator calling to back our cause. We were unstoppable now. Emma's divorce was finalized, and she threw a small party at her place, just us and a few friends. As we toasted with cheap wine, she raised her glass. "To Mom," she said, her voice breaking. "The strongest woman I know." I blushed, shaking my head. "To us," I said. "We fought together." Later, she pulled me aside, her eyes serious. "I'm starting that program for younger women," she said. "Teaching them to spot lies like you taught me." My heart swelled. "Your dad would love that," I said. She nodded, smiling. "I feel him too," she said. One cold evening, I visited Robert's grave, snow dusting the stone. I laid a rose, my fingers tracing his name. "You knew I could do this," I whispered. "Thank you for the trust." I told him about the foundation, Emma's strength, the women we'd saved. The wind stirred, soft and warm, like his answer. Driving home, I thought of Marcus, locked away, his plans in ruins. He'd seen me as a weak old woman, an easy mark. But I was Sylvia Hartley, widow, fighter, force. The moral was clear. Never underestimate someone's strength, especially when they've got love and truth on their side. I wasn't done fighting, but for the first time in years I felt peace. Robert's legacy, Emma's courage, and my fire, they'd carry us forward together.